Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine podcast. Today's guest is Andrew Woodbury. Andrew is an EAP instructor and entrepreneur from Toronto, Canada. He's the co-founder of Learn Your English, helping teachers escape precarity by growing their own business. He also produces LYE's podcast, Teacher Talking Time, which offers long-form interviews with scholars and researchers on second language acquisition and teaching approaches. Welcome to the EFL Magazine podcast, the go-to show for teachers and school owners in the world of English language education. Whether you're just starting your journey and looking for your first teaching job abroad, or you're an experienced educator aiming to build a thriving teaching business, this podcast is for you. Join us as we explore expert insights, share success stories, and provide actionable advice to help you excel in every stage of your teaching career. Tune in and take your passion for teaching to the next level. Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine podcast. And today's guest I'm delighted to have on is Andrew Woodbury, and Andrew is the co-founder of Learn Your English. Good morning or good evening from Tokyo. Good morning from Toronto.
It's very early here. Yeah, probably late for you too. Thanks, Philip. Thanks for having me.
And not so much actually when I see him now, but when I did see a picture of you from your LinkedIn, you do have a little bit of Ed Sheeran look about you. Did somebody say that before?
Nobody. That you're the first one. I will take it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's free. And so tell me about your co-founders, who you co-founded the company with.
Yeah, so there's three of us, myself, Leo Gomez, and Michael Landry, and the three of us, co-founded Learn Your English, or LYE, as we sometimes go by. And we met in Toronto here, teaching at a university, what seems like not long ago, but actually was quite a long time ago. I think it was 2016, which is about 9 years ago now, teaching at a university here in an academic EAP program. Met there, became friends first, colleagues first, friends second, and then decided to build a business together.
Yeah, almost as long as the magazine here, 10 years. I was just looking at some of the older articles and rejigging them a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of like that scene in The Holy Grail, listen, with the rabbits. They're far away and then suddenly they're upon you, aren't they?
Time has that effect on all of us, I think.
And tell me about Learn Your English. So you were all teaching at university in Canada, and you had an idea for a business. And you know, as people do, you sit down, have a coffee, have a beer, whatever, and you say, "Oh, let's start a business." Was it like that?
Pretty much, actually. Yeah, it was just one of those things that, I think everyone has, or most people have these thoughts of, oh, we should do this and we should do this. And we actually had that kind of thought for, like, I don't remember exactly how long, but months and months, kind of, and we'd go for another beer, go for another coffee, talk about it. And there was one moment where we just kind of said, you know what, are we going to do it or are we not going to do it? And just kind of put the wheels into motion. And for anyone that's kind of followed our work since that time, for the 9 years, they have seen like many iterations of the company, right? We started with different ideas. We actually started as a CPD offering, as a professional development company, and we ran really small workshops in Toronto for schools, and we actually had kind of once or twice a month teachers could come and for $5 or $10 or something, attend the workshop, do something, and that was great. That was a good start. Got our feet wet and kind of proved to ourselves that we could, hey, we can do this, we can do something. But ultimately, it wasn't like the big picture of the company wasn't going to be a profitable model that we could push forward. We did run into some resistance with schools and budgets and things like this if you're offering to institutes. So then that became the second iteration, and then COVID happened, and everything went online. And I'm not, I mean, I like to think I'm a pretty tech savvy guy most of the time, but I'm not afraid to admit that when COVID happened and people started talking about Zoom, I said, "What's Zoom?" What is this? And we just put everything online. And we had an idea previous to that. One of those, again, like everyone has ideas that you don't kind of implement or put into motion for a more of a CPD based community of teachers. And we just said, let's just put that online. We really only had an outline for it. We didn't really have any idea of what it would look like, but we just said, screw it, let's just do it. So in whatever that would be, April 2020, I think we put it up, and got like 20, 25 people to sign up on a monthly kind of, turned into kind of basically a book club. We read a chapter of an SLA book, Patsy Lightbound, etc. And we did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. It was quite good.
Yeah, and you say, screw it, let's do it. I think that's the title of one of Richard Branson's books, isn't it? And I think I actually watched a quick clip with him during the week, maybe a couple of days ago. And, his advice was the guy said, if you were starting a business again, your advice, he says, well, if you encounter a situation like he did, I think when he started the airline, wasn't it? He chartered a private airline because there was a cancellation. He said just situation like that. There's a need, isn't there? Or as someone else once said, where's the best place to sell hot dogs is where the people are hungry, isn't it? So where did you feel the hunger, the need from clients?
Yeah, a couple of different places. So I think in the original Inception, it was, or it still is really in, not teaching in, and this is really our background, right? And we bring this now to our business clients and help them design courses from a pedagogical perspective. But really, a dissatisfaction with teaching from course books or in a certain way, not that it means that if you are teaching from a course book, you don't adapt it, of course, like you make it your own or whatever, but just this kind of PPP structure of a way that's not really aligned with what, evidence or research would suggest is conducive to actually, acquiring a language, whatever your definition of acquiring means, right? So we were filling that gap of, hey, let's, doing some task-based teaching workshops, doing some emergent language workshops, and that was going really well. Schools liked it too. They just didn't like it enough to say, hey, we'll pay you lots of money to keep doing it. It was doing a once or twice a year workshop for a school, and that was a nice start for us, but that wasn't enough to say, hey, if we're going to push this forward and continue to do this, we're going to need more than that. So that need, I think, still exists among the teachers. And I think we use that now, or we, still recognize that and keep that with what we're doing with helping teachers build businesses, but helping them build businesses that are, pedagogic, have a pedagogical framework and foundation, and to build courses or offers or whatever there is they're going to sell, knowing that, hey, it's using evidence supported practices and using task based and not doing something that's just kind of gimmicky or, to make a quick buck.
Okay, great. So it's got a firm foundation, research based, and
I like to think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you mentioned PPP there. Well, we won't get into that. I'm not qualified enough to have a conversation about that. But that surprisingly, I don't know in Canada, but definitely here in Japan, it seems to be the mainstay of teaching still, doesn't it? It's pretty. What we say. No, I'm not going to say that.
It's hard to get out of I
Yeah,
mean, it's
exactly.
rational of it, right? So
Hmm.
Leo likes to joke that, because I mean, it is presentation practice and whatever. The last P is supposed to be practice, right? But Leo likes to say it's
Production is it production or
production.
production? Is
Yeah,
that right? Yeah.
presentation practice production. Yes, exactly. And he said the last one should be pray, because you just pray that they can use it because they probably don't know how to do it yet.
Mm. So, tell me a little bit about task-based learning. I know one of the previous podcast hosts, Ron Moraine. You might know Ron, do you?
I know of Ryan.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't met
yeah.
him. Yeah, absolutely.
Ron is a leading advocate of task-based learning, and also Katie Kato, who will be at actually once the podcast is out, it will already have been gone. But there's an upcoming workshop in Osaka with Katie.
Oh,
She's
nice.
a practitioner of task-based learning here in Japan. So for someone who wants to get started with task-based learning and the difficulties of online. So some people think, oh yeah, you get your Cuisenaire rods, you build your village and you explain what's going on. But there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there?
Well, it depends. It's a huge area, right? It's how I think on the nuts and bolts of it, it's basically just flipping instead of the teacher going into a physical, virtual, whatever classroom and saying, okay, today we're learning this and we're doing this, and here's my 10-minute talk on this, linguistic item. Just kind of going in and saying, here, I want you for the first 10 minutes to do this, right? here's a task, let's complete it, and then kind of noticing and seeing how well learners navigate that task. And I guess the key would be that the task could be meaningful, however you define it, to the needs of those learners, right? So in if a teacher has a business and they this magical word niche that everyone talks about, right? For me, task-based learning and entrepreneurship really align because your niche should have a very similar outcome. And some people push back, and Andrew, well, all my students are different. I have to, sure, some people will like the color green and the color red and have these micro differences. But if they're all, you know, project managers and they all need to make sales presentations on the regular, then that's the outcome, right? They all need to, that's the task. So a task-based learning approach is really just, okay, what's the task that they need to do? Why and how do they struggle accomplishing it? What are the kind of hindrances or stumbling blocks or stuck points for them? And let's do the task first to see where that is. That will be different for each person, of course. Some people will be better at different aspects than others. And then I can help them in real time improve it, give some, advice in the middle or some teaching points out, in the middle between tasks, and then repeat it again. So I think that's the key part of what we call a task cycle, not what researchers call a task cycle, right? So you do a task first just to see how they do it. You see where the points of instruction will need to happen, and then repeat the task at the end with, either exactly the same, a little bit different, or adding a little, levels of complexity to challenge them a little bit more when they do it again.
Okay, so you talk about the challenge of different learners. Now, you're probably aware of the what is the marshmallow spaghetti experiment? Do you know this one?
Marshmallow
Spe
experiment.
you,
Yeah.
you know the one where you have to build a tower with spaghetti
Oh, that
and
one.
a
Okay. I thought you were talking
marshmallow.
about with the kids where they put the marshmallow and say you can't eat it for 5 minutes and
Oh
you have to
yeah,
repeat
that
it
one,
until
the
you do
delaying gratification. Yeah,
it.
I read that one as well. Yeah. So you probably know the one where it's apocryphal, but they said they give it to MBA students and they give it to kids. And the MBA students, they're first like, who's going to be the project man? They get like 20, 25 minutes or something. And they're first forming a team. And then they're saying who's going to be in charge of what. And then they eventually say, they work out what way they're going to arrange the spaghetti, and then finally they use the marshmallow. But what they don't realize is marshmallow is much heavier than you think. The whole thing collapses, whereas kids just stick them all in the marshmallow and just stick it up. Is task based learning a little bit like that? That somehow you've different outcomes that maybe people who have like a curse of knowledge maybe are more of a challenge for the teacher or for the for.
I've never heard it compared to that before. That's very interesting, but I don't disagree with the analogy. I think it's very apt. It's very nice. I would say, yeah. I mean, of course, as teachers, you want to like personalize what you do and you want to adapt to each learner. But within like if you're teaching at an institute and you have 20 learners in your class and you're under this umbrella of what they call, general English, yeah, it's very difficult because there will be maybe 20 different, goals of those people within the room, right? When you have a niche and you're building a course, if you've done it properly, more or less the goal is similar, right? So project managers is just a generic example, but mechanics, whatever, right? And then it's much easier to adapt. So yes, I would, my answer, I mean, I'm biased. I love this approach, but yes, it is my answer because then you can see instead of, I guess, the alternative, which is, okay, I think today we're going to focus on, you know, introducing your presentation, whatever, right? But maybe half the room is like, I'm good at this. I don't need to practice that. Maybe the other half does. So I think when you set a task, you're able to navigate and see very clearly where the strengths and weaknesses lie, and then you can approach the rest of it that way. And as you're building courses, you know, that knowledge is imperative because as you build it, whether it will be synchronous, asynchronous, or hybrid combination, whatever, it's imperative. In order to sell it, you need to know one, the task that they need to complete, two, the goal that they have for themselves, three, why they struggle, and what the friction points of the improvements will be. So those are all key elements. And through completing tasks in real time, live, it's a great way to learn that and to see and to gain that information.
Okay, so it's you're very much taking your academic knowledge to the business field. It's similar to a podcast I did a few years ago with fellow Canadian Jeff Johnson. Actually, I was just sprucing up his article there today. Just reminded me of Jeff, where he had a career in strategic planning, and he was able to put that forward into his business. And so, yeah,
I think so. I
to
think
the
that's,
yeah.
when people start businesses, people always ask me like, what's a good idea for a business? I'm like, what do you like? Because you have to like, well, I don't like to say you don't have to, but it's much preferable, I would say, to be something that you're passionate about and that you actually enjoy doing. Because if you're going to be doing it for years and years, which is the idea, I guess, if you're starting, you know, some people say, you know, you like the idea. Some people say, well, you will fall in love with the process of it, like the challenge of building something, which I also agree with. But if you like the area, just makes pecking away at it, whether it's daily, weekly, whatever, much easier. Much that mental block when you don't want to, it makes it much easier to push past that when you enjoy it.
So I'd like to come back. We'll come back a little bit later about the courses and what you offer and some advice. So we'll dig into that. But first of all, I just wanted to. I was just looking at your bio as I said to you before the podcast started, and pickleball advocate. Now, um, pickleball paddle. What's the difference?
Between what?
Paddle and pickleball.
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what paddleball is. Pickleball is, this is one of my icebreakers I use with my students all the time because they'd never heard of it. And I just always describe it as, have you played pickleball, Philip?
Never, but I've seen it, and yeah, it looked, because actually about 50 yards from my house there's a tennis school. I played tennis one time and the ball went over the back, and that was my
Tennis is
only
so fun.
experience.
It's
Yeah.
exhausting. Like I have so much respect. Australian Open is on right now. Time zone is not friendly for us here in
Mm.
Canada, but so much respect for the tennis players. Like it's such a hard game. Such a hard game. Pickleball. I always say it's like tennis and ping pong had a baby, and you get pickleball, right? It's kind of on a tennis court, smaller one, but it's basically ping pong table tennis on a small tennis court. It's lots of fun. I actually learned it in Costa Rica, believe it or not, as you do, I suppose. Kind of an expat group that we hung out with. One guy was like, "Hey, do you want to play pickleball one day?" I said, "What? What is that?" And some guy had a court in his like finca in the jungle, and he painted the lines on it. And it was a basketball court, but he turned it into a pickleball court for us. And he was teaching us the rules, and it's really funky and kind of strange, but it's really fun.
Mm.
It's exercise. It's really fun.
It looks like a lot of fun. It's if they could come up with another version of golf that was easier. I like golf, but they have something here in Japan called park golf. It's
Hmm.
yeah, it's basically
There's that
lower skill.
Robin Williams bit about golf, right? About how when the Scots, I guess the Scots invented, I don't know if that's true, but the whole bit is about the Scots inventing golf and how they just did it to torture people. How, oh, we'll put a lake here, we'll put a beach here, and you hit it with a stick. Oh, not a real stick. We'll make it look real, you know? And then, oh, that's what you feel like you're gonna have a stroke every time. That's what we'll call it. We'll call it a stroke every time you hit it.
Yeah, much missed, isn't it? So, mentioning Costa Rica, you tell me about your time in Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's where I started teaching. That is, I lived there for about 3.5 years, and that was after university, finishing up here, kind of as I guess maybe a lot of situations didn't really have a direction in my life, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Um, I always had an inkling during university to study abroad, thinking about like just kind of decide to do something, and I didn't at that time. I didn't study abroad during university. So once I graduated, I kind of thought, well, this is my time to do it without the studying. Basically, was my thought. And as we were chatting before, winters in Canada are pretty harsh. So I'm not a winter person. I thought, hey, let's, you know, go there, escape the winter, go for 6 months. I took a TESOL course there and started teaching, and 6 months turned into 3.5 years essentially because I just loved it, not just the country and the people and the culture. And I learned Spanish, but also I learned that I loved teaching. I was pretty staunch in my stance when I told people I majored in history in university, which is true, and everyone said, "Oh, you're going to be a teacher," and I said, "No, I am not not going to be a teacher. Absolutely not." And then ultimately, I think they meant high school teacher or something like that, which I never did. But yeah, started teaching in Costa Rica at language schools there. Learned that, hey, I'm actually not terrible at it. I also enjoy it and loved living there. And it was the absolute best decision I've ever made.
Fantastic. Canadian not like in winter. Well, there you go. That's you heard it here. And
Yeah.
you moved back and you went, when I interview people or talk to people here in Japan or other countries about, their journey in TEFL, it's usually, they'll go back and they'll do a normal job, for the want of a better word, or they'll go the academic route, won't they? Or maybe they'll stay in the country and open a school. So you kind of went the academic route. You decided to get more credentials in. Looking for the best tools and resources to support your teaching or grow your school? Check out the EFL Magazine Buyer's Guide, your one-stop shop for top-rated products and services in English language education. From classroom materials to business tools, we've got you covered. Visit EFL Magazine today and find exactly what you need to take your teaching to the next level.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I've never had a real job. I don't think if the 9 to 5 kind of thing, if we define that as a real job, it never. Again, I feel so silly for this, but it never occurred to me. I decided after 3 years or so, I wasn't going to stay in Costa Rica. I was like mid 20s, 26 or something at the time, and just wasn't. I think I'd done the opportunities that existed there, so I wasn't. If I was I think maybe a little bit older, maybe I would have entertained staying, but at that point in my life, I wasn't going to stay. But it never occurred to me going back to Canada that I could continue teaching, foreign languages or second languages or English, because well, we're bilingual French and English, but most of the country speaks English. How could I do that? And then I just started kind of looking around, like, oh, wait a minute, of course, the people come here from Japan, from lots of different places for short times to learn. So then yeah, started teaching here at a language school and did that for a few years. Really kind of developed some more teaching skills doing that, which was great. And then I don't know what your experience is, Philip, with jobs, but I've didn't do it on purpose, but I've noticed a pattern with I kind of have held those kind of jobs for like 3 years. I had like a 3 year hump, and I've like invented that this is probably not real, but like the first year of a job, you're kind of learning it, kind of going through the humps. The second year, being good at it, if we can say. And the third year, at least in my experience, kind of being bored of it or not being as challenged anymore as you were. Is that your experience too?
Yeah. Actually, around 3 years was my limit as well. It was maybe 6 months learning, 2.5 years hating the job and wanting to get out. So before I became, I came to Japan, became teacher, which I work in one place. I'm working there for 12 years and I love working there. So, yeah, actually, somebody asked me this evening because I've had a lot of different jobs. They said, "Which job do you enjoy the most?" And I said, "This one." So that's the
There
way
you
it
go.
is. I sorry if anyone from my previous job, but they know I hated the jobs anyway. So there's no secret there. In sales and working in sales has its ups and downs. Some days sales is the greatest job in the world.
Tell me about
you can't do anything wrong. The money's coming in, you're talking, you're happy, and then the economy turns like it did with me in about 2008, 2009, and I worked in recruitment. So you can imagine in Ireland at the time, it went up to like 12, 14% unemployment in the matter of like 3 months. So you
it.
can
Wow.
imagine that was stressful.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
It is an emotional roller coaster. As you said, like there are stretches of time where you're selling everything and it's great and you're living life, and then equal stretches of holy smokes, nothing's happening.
Yeah, so it's happening. So settling into life in Japan, everything is moving along smoothly, and you just do the same thing, and then you die. Basically, that's the kind of culture in Japan. It is what what I would say it is something you get used to, especially as you get older. You know, people like to they take decisions less quickly, but things tend to there's a lot of inertia, let's say. You know, things just tend to move and don't change. And
Well, I
yeah,
think it
yeah,
that's the philosophical question of like what makes people happy, what at what juncture in your life and what makes I think that's for me a reason why what makes you happy is an interesting question because it changes, what makes you
yeah.
happy when you're 15, 25, 30, 40, 50, it's a different answer all the time. So whatever makes people content, do it.
Yeah, and as I was saying, a couple of months away from 50th birthday, I'm getting very philosophical. And I was thinking actually on the train today, the Paul Simon song, Slip Sliding Away. You know, the one is like the nearer your destination, the more you slip sliding away. So it feels a little bit like that. It's like, oh, every year is okay, it's great. But actually, I'm getting a little bit weaker every year and growing a bit older. And then, that's it. But anyway, we tried to keep it light here on the podcast. So I want to get back to your teacher accelerator program. So this is the kind of is this the mainstay of your business, or you still do CPD courses? Is there anything else you do in your business?
Yeah, with Learn Your English. So yeah, that's the main, I guess that's our hero, that's our coaching offer. That's the main thing that we do. We do still offer we created during COVID some self-study, self-guided CPD courses for teachers. So we do sell those separately as well, but the TAP or Teacher Accelerated program is the main one. Yeah.
And just looking at your homepage, your landing page here, I was a previous guest I had with Paul Salloway. I was really geeking out on writing landing pages. So I'm a bit of a geek about landing pages and
All
headlines.
right.
But I particularly like yours in the black, this black background, white writing, helping teachers escape precarity by generating their own income. Build a teaching career on your terms. Ready to take the first step? So tell me about this, the precarity in teaching. What is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, precarious. I think all around the world, ELT is a pretty precarious industry. Lack of jobs, lack of security, lack of contracts or full-time or permanent employment, these kinds of things. And that's exists in Canada for sure. And from what I've learned from our clients and just our audience and talking to people around the world through our podcast and talking to people like you, it seems fairly similar. Not exactly the same, but fairly similar elsewhere. We don't have, to my knowledge, in Canada this, but in Europe, I've heard, 0 hour contract type of things like that, which never makes sense to me. Or hiring somebody for 0 hours. I don't know even what that means. No guarantee of work, I suppose. But it can be rough. It can be rough. So for this, and it doesn't always work out like this with a business, but I think a good place to start if someone's listening and doesn't know what to do is, solve your own problem. And I think that's what we did, where we met at the university. I taught there for my magic 3 years. I taught there and then moved on. And yeah, it was a very nice place to work. It was very busy, but it was only for 8 months of the year. I'm very much lifestyle oriented, lifestyle driven. Those are kind of my ambitions. I don't want to work 12 months a year. I don't want to work 8, 9 hours a day. I want to take vacations. I want to travel. And that job afforded some of that, but not all of it. But it was also stressful. And the semester, the academic year would end in the spring, April, and they'd say, "We'll be in touch about September." You know, May, June would pass, no word. July, and then in August, they would kind of trickle in with, "Okay, here," but I just decided it's not really a way I want to do the next 30 years of my life, And it wasn't about that specific place. That's just the industry overall and kind of how it operates. I do empathize a little bit. You mentioned sales, right? So every school works on a sales cycle, and if they don't have clarity on the sales numbers, they can't offer contracts. I understand how that works, but you know, our situation, I think, was probably better. It paid really, really well. We did have good situation. But there's lots of teachers around the world that don't get paid as much, or maybe what they want. So our program really, or our kind of philosophy of this is, yeah, don't quit a job if you like, or that you like if you like it, but you can make your own money on the side. This is what we started to do. Is okay. Well, if we're gonna not be working for 3 or 4 months of the year, then how do we fill those gaps and how do we do it doing something that we like? So that was the initial impetus of this, and that's something that we've seen resonate with a lot of our audience and our clients is that, yeah, it is precarious. Um, it's an elephant in the room, I think. I don't know if you agree that a lot of people don't talk about it. It's like a dirty word, but we just said, let's just put it out there because everyone feels it, everyone knows it. It's not even an opinion, I don't think. It's kind of a fact. It is a precarious industry. And what are we going to do about it? And that was how we started.
Great. Well, I think we've chatted about this in the past. I think I've had a number of guests on one particularly about collective model, and I know Nicola John Hayes that was, and Nicola Prentice, who actually she does. I don't know if you know Nicola. She
Yeah, oh
runs
yeah, yeah,
courses for
absolutely.
investors in ELT. She's coming at it probably from the other side. Is if you have a little bit of money to invest it and safeguard your future. But you're very much about let's say supplementing your income. Is it maybe keep your existing job, but you're as you said, 0 hour contracts or maybe part-time positions or morning work or seasonal work. There's always going to be time blocks there, isn't there? And as you say, sometimes it is a little bit lucrative if you're paid by the hour, but you're not working every hour, are you? So it's about filling that time in.
If you do the math on it, I mean, we made the hourly wage was good. It was, like 80, $90 an hour or something like that. But then we would kind of do the math on it and saying, well, that doesn't include the prep time and the grading. So if we did it, and you could, I mean, this is all arbitrary, but you can wean it down and like, oh, it's really like $35 an hour, you know. So you could do the kind of math on that. Um, I think I've seen most of our clients come to us. Yes, they want to keep their main job and augment at the same time. But I don't think that's the main focus. The main question we ask people before they join and as they kind of get onboarded with us is, what's your main goal here? Like, what's your 10-year goal? Don't think in the next couple of weeks or months, because that's what precarity does to a lot of teachers, is it puts them into survival mode, right? How am I going to make money today or this month or just in this quarter? But when you start a business, the returns are not immediate, right? It does take a little bit of time to get the wheels in motion. So what is your 5-year or 10-year goal with this? How do you want this to fit? Do you want this to be your only source of income eventually? Or do you see yourself like what we do? We still teach. Teach part-time on the side and I love it. I love teaching. I love still being in the classroom. And I think that gives us a little bit of an authority on, hey, we can help you build this. We can help you do this because we're still doing it ourselves. So how do you I like the puzzle analogy of like how do these pieces of the puzzle fit together? So for me, I have three sources of income. Collectively, they work really well and they allow me to, take time off and they fit together in a way that allows a lifestyle that I, at this point in my life at least, enjoy and like and cherish.
Okay, so can you give me maybe an anonymous case study of somebody you worked with in the past that maybe came to you and was in this kind of situation? When you say precarity and let's say the word maybe desperate, and being salespeople have all gone through this cycle as well. Is you're not getting sales, and you start forcing the issue, and then people can feel the desperation in your voice, and then it's a vicious circle after that. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, I can see it with teachers as well, especially if we mentioned Nicola there haven't got the grounding or um, tutoring in financial planning and future planning so someone comes to you, they're in this situation. Obviously, there's a bit of emotional, baggage there, and they feel frustrated, maybe felt undervalued, isn't it? If you're not getting paid, and as happens with universities, especially around the world, that things are going more with agencies. Are they direct hires? Not so much, and the agency is getting X amount. You're not even on the official payroll. You're on an agency payroll.
At times, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's a business decision, right? How the business model is set up. And I mean, the schools have to get the clients in. The students are clients at the end of the day. And if there are no clients and no students, then they don't need teachers at all. So it is kind of like a double-edged sword, where they have to get them in the door. Client acquisition is probably the biggest pain point or hurdle or expense for most businesses or most companies, and schools are no different in that. But I would say, yeah, with case studies, people coming to us, it does depend on where they're starting. But what we've seen, I guess, kind of typical profile is, yeah, someone who's dissatisfied with working at a language school, let's say, and maybe they have never done anything on their own before, or they have, some one-to-one tutoring that they've been doing. That's kind of the typical profile that we see. And we really kind of want to help people with that kind of 10-year picture in mind to have an offer. So our version of so the three things that you would need would be a problem that you solve, a way that you solve it, and then a way to gain more people like them, to get leads and to get more clients. And so we call the problem use. That's our take on niching. Instead of making a profile of a person, who's this tall and has this color hair and eyes and whatever, what problem do they have, and why do they see that as a problem, and why do they want it solved now? Right. So that's put that together, and that's the buying motive, right? So you solve a problem, and we usually say that that's not linguistic, because when usually people associate linguistic items as lower value, like learning grammar, learning vocabulary, this, that. But if you focus on, you mentioned sales. So, hey, how to do a sales call and close, 10% more deals, right? Okay, there's a problem. And then through how you solve it, yes, the linguistic items will come into play, because maybe, you're working with second language speakers, third language speakers, whatever the case is. But the offer would be non-linguistic at the surface. And then helping them kind of go through that process of, yeah, let's try and do that. And then let's not solve it at a one-to-one basis, perhaps, right? Many teachers come to us and say, hey, I do have some clients, but I'm doing one-to-one. I'm doing like 5-6 hours one-to-ones per day, 4 or 5-6 days a week. And while, yeah, I can earn money doing that now, I can't do that for the next 10 or 20 years. It's not sustainable. So kind of packaging the problem that you solve in a fulfillment method that fits a lifestyle that you want, but also fits what would help the client achieve that goal as well. And really, I mean, we all kind of agree with this, that, if you're the student who has their 1 hour, 60-minute one-to-one lesson once a week, every Wednesday afternoon, how much progress are you really making, right? So kind of packaging an offer, course, whatever word you want to use, into self-guided work, where if they do have that lesson every Wednesday, okay, great, but what are they doing on Thursday, Friday, etc., preparing for the next lesson. And then being able to, I don't like the word productize, because it kind of seems to take away from personalization, which it shouldn't. With language learning, that is very important. But being able to provide feedback and provide different things without actually, scheduling meetings, or, with time zone gymnastics and these kinds of things. The focus is getting the client the result on their schedule, and being able to have a model that for you will be sustainable as a business. So kind of getting them set up with that to do some experimentation and testing in the beginning phases, which is the foundation. We like the term, I didn't come up with this, but I watched Shark Tank in the US, and one of the guys was talking about this phrase called accelerate to fail, which we talked earlier about Richard Branson. I forget what you said, just something and do it, right?
Let's screw it and do it. It's not.
Go and do
Let's,
it.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Accelerate to fail, which I really like that, because, I think a lot of, especially when you haven't done a business type endeavor before, your fear is, oh, what if it doesn't work? What if it fails? And it might, you know, but would you rather find that out really quickly in the first 90 days, or would you rather wait 5 years and then realize it didn't work? Let's figure out if people will actually want this idea. There's no like negative. It's just feedback. There's not like a bad outcome. It's just feedback. Find out that information quickly, iterate as necessary, and keep moving.
Yeah, it's like one of the podcasts I used to follow when I first, this is 10 years ago. So I used to listen to a lot of these podcasts, business startup, online business podcasts. And I can't even remember the name of the guy, sorry. But he built a business, actually, software as a service. And the way he
Yeah.
went about things was he just think of an industry, legal industry, clothes, whatever. And he'd just ring up 100 people and say, what kind of problems have you got? And if we made software, would you buy this software? Oh, yeah, 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 that would solve our problem. And then he'd get someone to build the software and sell it to them.
Wonderful. Yeah, market research, right? Super, super important. I think it's people sometimes they ask me, like, Andrew, should I build? There's different two schools of thought, I think, generally, of starting a business, right? Do you build your audience first, and then from that do what you just mentioned and kind of ask them questions, or do you, go to market first, kind of build a beta product and do a test cycle and then see what's there? I think both are fine. With teachers, we've seen the latter to gain faster results because building an audience takes from scratch, like takes forever. You know, you could take 12 months just to kind of gain any kind of traction, and then you're starting. So we are on the second one, which is product first, where you can have a test group and learn about them, ask those questions. But both of those would achieve the same result, where it's not a question of audience first or product first. It's need first, right? What do these people need, and what's the fastest route for you to find out that information? So for us, and what we've tested both, and we saw overwhelmingly with teachers, getting to market with a beta product first, very, very skinny, very light, just for the interaction of getting 5 to 10 people to help you test it and interview them, asking them questions on, what is the problem? Did this help you solve it? What's missing? What's overkill? What would help you better? How much would you pay for something like this? Would you pay for something like this? Or are you just doing it because it's free? And getting all that information to find out what the need is. Because without a need, I think that's why we talk about, the niche or the problem you solve is non-linguistic, because there's a psychological element to what people will pay for and what the actual problem is. Most clients associate their problem not with language, but with not closing enough deals, getting, negative feedback from their boss on their sales presentation, on failing IELTS again. you know, that's the problem. And why is that a problem? And then the linguistic features can help them achieve the goal, but they associate the value with that problem. So it's need first, how to find out what that need is, and then design the product from there.
Okay, fantastic. You might be familiar with Clayton Christensen, isn't that the guy? He's the Harvard guy. He's like jobs to be done theory, isn't it? So it's very similar to that. I've spoken maybe on podcast before. People somebody wants to pass IELTS as you mentioned, or TOEFL, or somebody needs to get a score, let's say a TOEFL score to become a pharmacist in wherever. So it's very similar to that. You're giving it's jobs to be done. People are coming to you with specific goal to solve some problem, whether that be eradicate their shame, or like it's for gain, or for attachment or aversion, let's say aversion to shame, or attachment to betterment, basically career or academic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can be. And you have to really find out, the jobs to be done theory is so interesting. And I follow someone, a fellow Canadian actually on LinkedIn who's awesome, and her name is Caitlin. And she had an example about the jobs to be done theory. And she said, let me ask you if you know, she bought an old school alarm clock,
Oh,
like
okay,
the
yeah.
one, like the blocks. Um, why do you think she did that?
Okay, a few ideas. Okay, she didn't want to read her phone in bed at nighttime, like blue light. It was kind of getting in the way of her sleep, or she wanted to charge her phone, or I don't know. I've run out of ideas already. Give me. Mm.
So her name is Caitlin Bourgeois, and she's Canadian, and she runs a business called Unignorable and Customer Camp, and she's all about into marketing. She had this workshop, and she talked about, yeah, why do you think I bought this old school alarm clock? And it turns out the problem that she had was she wanted to exercise early in the morning. She wanted to get up, go to the gym, work out, and she wasn't doing it. Why not? What do you think?
Well, she was pressing snooze, wasn't she?
No,
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 she wasn't getting out of bed. It's sort of like atomic habit is actually your first step. Get out of bed first, and then you're up, and you're more
she
likely
wasn't
to.
getting out of bed. But what do you think? Why do you think she had trouble getting out of bed?
Uh, be- she had trouble getting out of bed. It was winter time, and it was cold.
That is true. I have the same. It's so dark. When I woke up for this show, it was still really pitch dark. I was like, oh my gosh. No, because so this is where I think finding the need for a product that you're making is really important, because it's not always obvious. So her problem was not getting up in the morning. Her problem was the night before. If you want to get up early, the most important thing is to go to bed early, right? But why wasn't she going to bed early? Because she was like doom scrolling on her phone
Aha.
in bed. So you're kind of right on the blue light um, theory there, right? Where she would just be scrolling and get kind of stuck in social media for whatever amount of time, and then wouldn't be able to get to sleep, and then is not able to get up in the morning. So she bought an alarm clock so that she could put her cell phone in a different room in the kitchen, whatever, when she goes to bed, go to sleep faster, be able to wake up and go to the gym. So if you're the business that sells alarm clocks, that becomes your marketing pitch, right? Get rid of the phone at night. It's not about any features at the alarm clock. Oh, I have a fancy snooze button. They don't care. That's not
Hmm.
why they're buying. In her case, not why they're buying it. The job's to be done. What's the jobs to be done? Go to bed earlier, get off the phone earlier so your brain can relax, be able to wake up earlier and go to the gym. And then that alarm clock box fits into that mold. So if you're a teacher and what are the jobs to be done of your niche, right? It's not learn present perfect or learn these vocabulary words. What are the jobs to be done? And then fit your offer into that.
Fantastic. Yeah, excellent example. I was going to give the milkshake example, but I kind of forget it now. You know the one that he
Oh
he
no.
gives in the book, doesn't he? But it's like, oh yeah, buy the milkshake so it'll like accompany me on the journey. But there's something more to it, but I can't remember. If you can remember the more details about it.
I do like milkshakes. They always make me
Yeah.
thirsty at the end though. They make me have to drink something else at the end of a milkshake, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had one for so long. I tried to cut down on the cholesterol a little bit. So yeah, but for me, I think well, one other reason for getting out of bed, isn't it, is to have some motivation and some get up and go in your life. And if somebody enrolls on your course or takes your tutelage, let's say, you think you can get them from a state of, let's say, being dejected about the current state to, hopeful, yeah, to more hope about the
Yes,
future. Yeah.
absolutely. I think
Mm,
that's the big benefit of the program is it's really a psychological transformation in conjunction with, a tangible one. It's proving to yourself that you're capable and that you can do this. And just with the right kind of steps in place, you make progress. And so absolutely, we've seen it over the years with all the teachers that we worked with. It does take some commitment. That's why we use the accelerate to fail mindset and the 10-year kind of what's your North Star, because having a business is hard. There are
mm.
no quick fixes to this, but delayed gratification, putting things off, but having the foundations in place and just proving to yourself that I am capable, I can do this. And we want to get, for everyone who joins the program, we want to get them their first 5 clients within 30 to 45 days of working with us, just so they can prove to themselves that, oh, I can do this. I'm on the right track. So we help them run a beta or a pilot version just to get the wheels moving within 30 to 45 days. And that's where they right away can start to feel like, okay, I can do this. And then from that, lots of information on the need that the market has, the jobs to be done, and then implementing the next steps from there. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's that let's I was actually reading about Stephen Covey the other day, but paradigm shift, isn't it, in the mind, the uh, this inflection point where you can get to a point of, let's say, learned helplessness, and then get to, a point of agency, isn't there, that you can actually do things to change your life. That's a quite thrilling moment for you, for anybody to experience personally, but for you as a trainer, in your business, it must be very gratifying to.
Very gratifying. Very, very. I mean, we just had yesterday, one of our clients, Vicky, who's doing her first, run. She was signing up her first clients. Another person in the program, Elisa, who kind of has done almost a full year. It takes about, we say 12 months to kind of really get the real foundations, run it a couple times, get your client acquisition strategy down. And now she's got, you know, a full cycle in that. She's run the course many times. Now she has a couple of different offers that she's running. And she said, I don't have time to come to the meetings anymore. I'm too busy helping my clients, which is like a wonderful thing to hear because that's a great problem. That's what you want in your business. And we helped her to get two revenue streams. So one is getting people in the front, your sales background, so getting in the front end, right? New clients on the new offer, and then once they go through your, whatever length transformation it is, having them renew to, what's the next goal for them? Because the great thing I think, or great opportunity about a language business is that learning a language, quote unquote, it's never finished, right? Unless you're helping people with something finite like IELTS, like they need 7.0 on the IELTS, once they get it, they're done. But if it's more in the soft skills area of, presentation skills, sales skills, this, that, the other, there's always an opportunity to improve. So you do have the opportunity that once you get clients in the front end and they learn to trust you and like you, that you can renew them. And that's where Elise is at now, where she's having all these renewal offers. And that's no money is easy money, but that's a lot easy. It's much easier to sell to people who are already with you and like you and trust you than people who maybe know you publicly, but haven't actually seen, there's no proof in the pudding, so to speak. That's always a more difficult step. So having those two revenue streams on the same offer is a great place to get to within 6 to 9 months of starting a business.
Fantastic. So, it's for people listening that may be in this situation. It's I use the story of Buster actually here in Tokyo when Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson.
Yes,
back in the day, and Buster Douglas. Well, Mike was not at
way
his
back.
best, was he? He had there was a few issues in his life, and we won't go into those. But
Mike
um,
wasn't at his best more recently too.
oh yeah, that's right. With that was it Logan Paul, Jake Paul, which one of those, wasn't it? Yeah, I
I
didn't
don't
watch
know.
it. Yeah, I really wish they'd stop these gimmick fights. But anyway, Mike made a bit of money out of it, so good luck to him. But yeah, there's a point where I think one of the commentators said that yeah, obviously Buster Douglas, he was a rank outsider. He didn't probably fancy his own chances, no matter despite what bravado he had. But someone made a point to say that in the fight game, as they say in boxing, when people get brave, there's a point where he's like he hit Mike and he like stumbled, went down, and he got brave. And he said, when you get brave, you don't go unbrave. If that's a word, I don't know, but you don't lose it. So it's I don't know the analogy of like you're in your school at the moment. You're not earning the money you think you should. You're feeling like undervalued, and you don't know. I could never bring in clients, but then you figure you can bring in clients, and
Yeah,
then you're Richard Branson in 12 months. No, but yeah, it's thrilling, isn't it?
it is. I mean, I remember the first time I signed up my very first client. It was shocking. It was amazing. It was all the emotions of I can't believe that just happened. It's amazing. And then fear sets in, like, oh my God, I actually have to help them do this now, like, and all the things. And then you're building your comfort zone,
Mm,
right? When you haven't done anything in your life, when you learn to ride a bicycle, you've never done it before and you fall off a few times and you don't know how to do it. And then eventually you become more comfortable. And then you don't just ride on flat streets. Now you're going up and down hills. And then that becomes normal. And then, oh, maybe you're going to do some trails and do some this and do that. And I think that's, yeah, there's a challenge solution cycle that there's a challenge in front of you, you solve it, and then a new, quote unquote, better challenge emerges, and then you get to solve that, and then you keep moving forward. But for, you know, helping people at the beginning of an entrepreneurial journey, the psychological element is by far the biggest hurdle. That's the one that's toughest. It's just getting the ball rolling. And that's why we talk about what's your North Star or what's your 5 or 10 year goal? What's your purpose for this? Because it will take a bit of time. And if you're going to put effort into this and really give it a go, which is required, it has to be important to you. It has to be a priority. It has to be something that you care about. It can't just be, if you want to just make some quick money, because right this year recession, which is a real thing, it is tough. Yeah, maybe just doing some one-to-one tutoring as you're doing for this next 6 months is the way to go, and then you don't have to do it anymore. But if you really want this to be part of your life going forward, then that psychological element of proving to yourself you can do it and putting those slow steps at the beginning is vital because those are the building blocks that you'll have for the next 5 or 10 years.
So I think we leave it at that. We'll end on a high point, the apotheosis of the podcast. Thanks again, Andrew, for joining me today.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the EFL Magazine podcast. We hope you found inspiration and practical tips to support your journey as an educator or school owner. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to help us to reach more listeners like you. Until next time, keep teaching, learning, and growing your impact in the world of English language education.